Welcome, and thank you for joining Between Sessions with Justin and Chaley.
Just a quick disclaimer before we start. This podcast is for educational and conversational purposes only. It's not intended to replace therapy, counseling, or professional mental health care. We are sharing lived experiences and reflections, not prescriptions, and we encourage our listeners to seek professional guidance when needed. Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
Today, we have a topic that is near and dear to many people's hearts, but it is talking about ADHD in adults and the clinical side of it, but then also the real life side of it, how it actually shows up.
Disclaimer, this is all just informational purposes. We are not diagnosing or treating anyone.
No.
Sorry, just putting that little disclaimer out there.
Thank you. So even though I'm reading kind of as we're going through this from the DSM, we're doing it as the lived experience piece of it.
Yeah. And I mean, anyone can pick up a DSM-5 and look at it. So we are reading from the DSM-5. And that, for those of you that don't know, is our Bible. That is our diagnostic book that we use when we diagnose. So this is just kind of like the criteria for an ADHD diagnosis.
So, looking at it first, so it's going to be continuous patterns of inattention or hyper impulsivity that interferes with functioning or development. And so, inattention, that is going to be really struggling to pay attention to things, having a hard time focusing, so not being able to identify and work on one thing at a time. And then the difference within concentration is long term not being able to stay committed to an event or a task. So I think that's a good place to kind of stop for a second. What
Okay.
might that feel like?
Okay, I have examples for both of those. All right, so the not being able to stay on task for one task for a long period of time. Husband was very upset that I had never watched Lord of the Rings. And so he said, we're going to sit down and we're going to watch The Lord of the Rings. But he told me I can't pick up my phone, I have to pay attention and watch this movie. And they're 3 hours long.
That was probably like torture. Not that the movie's bad or anything, but to stay focused or concentrated for that long.
Yeah, they are so long. I barely remember what happened in the movie because I was so focused. This is going to sound so weird. I was so focused on focusing that I wasn't retaining anything. And it was awful. And we watched all of them. It's like torture. And I was fidgety and I couldn't focus and my mind went in a million different places. And I felt bad because I'd ask a question and he would be like, they just said that. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
So the inattention, so the focus piece, so not being able to focus on that task or just getting distracted and going in so many different directions.
So this is so real and I joke about it and make light of it and I laugh about it because otherwise I would cry. But God, it shows up everywhere. It shows up at work, right? So I can walk you through if I have an hour in between clients and I really want to focus on getting my notes done. This actually just happened the other day. I need to get some notes done. Okay, so I sit down at my computer and I start working on notes. And then my phone dings and it's just a generic message from the boss to the group, hey, something, something. But then I think of my boss and I thought, oh my goodness, I need to get my paperwork done for my exam that I have coming up soon. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do that. So then I'm like, okay, put my notes on hold. And then I go and I try to do that. And then something else happens. I don't even know. I go to do that. And then I look and I see that I started a scarf, because I crochet. And I'm like, okay, I really need to get that done. But I don't need to get it done right now. I need to focus on this task that I was not even originally supposed to be doing. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to look at the scarf. I'm going to focus on this task. And then I will, I need a pen I needed a pen because I needed to write numbers down. And I look around and I'm like, oh my gosh, I meant to clean my desk and I didn't clean my desk. All right, I have like 3 minutes. I need to clean my desk so I can get to a pen so I can do these number things so I can get back to my notes. So I'm like, okay, I need to clean my desk. So then I start putting stuff in the trash and then I take the trash out. Well, when I take my trash out, I empty everybody's trash. Okay, so now I'm walking to each office to empty everybody's trash because I'm wonderful. And then I got to my boss's office and she must have spilled like some coffee or something on her coffee table. Okay, so I tie up the trash and I leave it because we have to walk it down the hall to throw it out. And I leave it by the front desk. And then I go into your office because I knew you had wipes. And I walk in and I'm like, I could vacuum, right? Like, this is very comical. Okay. And I'm like, oh, I could vacuum. Nope. Nope. I'm staying on task. I got the wipe. I went into my boss's office, wiped down her coffee table. Now I'm like, I could really vacuum. Like, I could just bust it all out real quick. So I clean her coffee table. I go get the vacuum. I vacuum her office. Didn't vacuum your office, but I vacuumed her office, vacuumed the hallway. And then as I'm vacuuming the hallway, I see the garbage that I left there. So then I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to take the garbage down. So then I take the garbage and I throw it out and I come back and the vacuum's there. So I'm like, oh yeah, I was vacuuming. So then I go into my office to vacuum and then I look at my desk and I'm like, I was cleaning my desk. And then I was like, oh yeah, I was cleaning my desk because I needed to find a pen because I needed to do these numbers because I needed to get this done so I could do my notes. So now an hour has gone by and I have gotten pretty much nothing done, but I took the trash out and I cleaned a coffee table. So then I am so pissed at myself that I just had to sit on the floor and like regulate myself before my next session because I was so mad at myself. So yeah, it sounds really, really funny until you're living it and you look like a messy, disorganized. I mean, we joke about it all the time. Like, come on into my messy office. You look like a messy, disorganized, crazy person. And then I just had to spend the remaining like 10 minutes before my session sitting on my floor and regulating myself so that I didn't have a complete meltdown because guess how many notes I got done? 0. So it is very funny, but it is also just the most exhausting thing I've ever experienced. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Now I'm just exhausted talking about it.
Look, I know I chuckled through that, and I think because parts of it were really relatable for me, but then thinking about it, like, hearing it out loud, it sounds ridiculous, but it is those are the connections that become immediate in that impulsivity of when we hear the word impulsivity, like, I tend to think about, like, these huge extreme things of, like, well, I'm going and spending $1,000,000 on something, or I'm going and making a poor choice that's impulsive. Those impulsive decisions can also be the really simple ones of, "Oh, well, let me just clean this coffee table now because it's gotta be done, right?" And then it takes that precedence over it. And so I chuckled because I could relate to different pieces of it, but then also, like, hearing it, it's like, "Oh my goodness." Like, hearing it out loud, it sounds wild, but it does not in our brain. It does not feel funny, it can feel so overwhelming, like you had just said, and then it can turn to that frustration or anger piece of it. I really appreciate you kinda walking through and that's just 1 hour.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's just 1 hour. That was essentially free in one sense. Thinking about all the ones that maybe we do have more targeted tasks or that we really do need to concentrate and focus in, that can be exhausting. Like you said, I really appreciate you sharing
That's
that.
also, I feel like, why I procrastinate a lot because I can't do anything until I'm like under the pressure of a deadline. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I can sit down and get this done.
Tell me a little bit more about the frustration piece. I'm sure it probably doesn't feel good to be frustrated, but like, what's that self-talk then look like?
You want to know what my self talk to myself is? Because it's not nice.
Okay. That's I guess what I was thinking is, like, it's probably degrading and makes us feel even worse when we're already feeling crappy about that situation that we didn't get it done, and then we're just talking worse to ourselves because we're frustrated that we didn't get the things done.
Yeah, it's a lot of like, I will say this to myself, like, what is wrong with you? Like, all you had to do in this hour was notes. That's all we had to do. And now we're sitting here, like, freaking doing our coping skills because we went so psycho and couldn't even do a simple task. And then it just spirals and it's like how do you do this job? You can't even do one task. And it's just like at home too. I mean, like when my husband and I were like, we're cleaning, and it is the most ridiculous thing to try and watch me clean. And my husband, like, bless his soul, is so nice to me because I've had to say to him, I need you to treat me like our 8-year-old, and I need you to give me one task and yell at me if I go off task. Like, I need one task at a time because if you just tell me, like, clean the kitchen, I'm gonna have like half the dishwasher done,
Mhm.
and then I'm gonna be cleaning out the fridge. Like, it's just, and then it's probably going to be more chaotic than when I started
Mhm.
trying to clean. Again, super funny, haha, except not, because then I have I'm a terrible wife. I'm a terrible mom. I can't keep a clean house. I'm just awful. My husband has to do most of the cleaning because something's wrong with my brain. Or I just am so lazy that I can't do anything because I will just sit there. And I think that's another big difference with ADHD in adults rather than in kids is with kids, you see the hyperactivity. You see it. You see them running.
They can't sit still, they're getting up, they're moving from seat, like, when they should be still, they're getting up, they're running around and exerting that energy.
Yeah, I don't experience that. I experience sitting so still sometimes because my brain is what is hyper. And so my brain is going in a million different directions and I almost look like I'm sleeping with my eyes open. Like sometimes my husband will be like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, just thinking about a million different things at once." And so that's also hard too because like if you see a kid running around all day and then they're exhausted, you're like, "Well, yeah, you've been running around all day."
Right.
You don't see what's going on in my brain. So then when I'm exhausted, it's like, you did nothing. You did nothing today. It's like, I know, I
And I've
know.
also heard people talk about this, like, it's really hard to, like, grab that one thought and focus on that, and then you're trying so hard to concentrate on that one thought and be able to do something with it, that then you forget about what that thought is, and then you're frustrated that you're forgetting what that is, so then you're not even paying attention if you're in a conversation because you were trying to think of that one thought. That can make communicating really challenging.
Yeah, I used to interrupt people a lot, and I've really obviously, as a therapist, you can't interrupt people, so I've really worked on that, but one of the things is if I have a thought, I hyper focus on it so I don't forget about it, and then sometimes I will find that, and this happens more so in my personal, I feel like I'm
Yeah.
really able to, like, focus when I'm at work, but it happens a lot in my personal life where my husband will be talking and I will totally zone out because he said something and I thought of something and I really need to say my thought, but I don't want to interrupt him and be rude. So I'm clinging on to this thought so it doesn't go anywhere. And then I don't hear the rest of his sentence.
Right. Hmm. And that can be really tough to interact and, like, having a meaningful conversation because you want to show up and you want to be in that conversation, but anytime you have that good thing that would be important to share kinda consumes it, it sounds like. Hmm, that's so interesting of what it may look like on the outside versus what's going on inside.
Cause I'm sure I look like just a lazy POS because I'm just sitting there. My husband's cleaning. I'm just sitting because I'm so overwhelmed that I'm just like,
Mhm. I can relate to, like, the ADH I've heard it, like, coined as, like, the ADHD cleaning, like, I remember a couple weeks ago, I was like, "I'm gonna clean off the dining table because it's just been a catch-all," and then that resulted in me reorganizing all the plants and cleaning the windows and reorganizing the drawers, and then when I got done, I didn't even wipe down the table, which was my whole goal of walking into that room. So, I can relate to that piece of it for sure, and it does not feel like we're not doing those things in the moment. It feels like we're accomplishing the world, but then
mm-hmm.
that one task that we actually set out to do.
Yeah, cause like, in our brains, it makes sense, like, notes, like, I had to clean my desk, to
Mhm.
find a pen, to do this so in my head, I'm like, "No, this is me making progress towards doing my notes," until you're sitting there on the floor and you're like, "I actually made 0 progress. Cool.
And
Thank you, brain."
where I chuckled a little bit when I did that, I was like, "Well, obviously, I had to clean the outside of the windows in order to clean the table off. Like, how could you not? That's not how your brain works. What? So it can sound comical, but there's so many connections and loops that it goes through to get there. So thinking about the inattention, so fails to give close attention to details or make careless mistakes. So because we're so focused on the other things, we might overlook very simple things, which can be viewed as like those careless mistakes, or you're not paying attention, or you don't know what you're doing. And then often having difficulty sustaining that attention during activities, often does not seem to listen when being spoken to directly, often having difficulty organizing tasks and activities. It might make sense up here to us, but like to someone else looking at it, it might look so disorganized, like how you just brought us through that. And in your head, it made perfect sense of how you got there. But an outsider looking in, none of those connect.
Why are you cleaning your boss's coffee table?
To write notes.
Right. Yeah.
And then often avoids or dislikes or reluctant to engage in tasks that required that mental sustained effort. So like that movie, it was like almost torture, it sounded like, and you weren't able to really take it in because you were trying so hard to comprehend it and to take that information in. Um, Often loses things necessary for the task, like car keys or a pen or just the specific things that we need because our brain is going so fast, we leave them and may not remember where we put them. That's where it can be so important to have like a specific place for things. Building that routine for someone experiencing ADHD as an adult, it's so challenging to build that routine. But the only way to be able to get better is to push through and build that routine so we know exactly where when we walk in the house, this is where the keys go. We're not losing them anymore. But to do that repeatedly is so hard to make that happen.
I also that reminds me that with adults, I feel like we overcompensate for it. So, like, I originally did not receive an ADHD diagnosis because the person that was doing the assessment was very black and white, like, answer the question yes or no.
Okay.
And I specifically remember she asked about like losing things. Okay. And I said, well, I mean, the things that I tend to lose, I have Apple tags on everything. So that's not really a problem because if I lose my keys, my wallet, my phone, my computer, my AirPods, like anything that I might lose, I have stuck an Apple tag on so I can find it. And that got marked down as nope. Yep, that also happened with one of the things is like you have trouble paying your bills on time. And I said, "Well, I have an Excel spreadsheet where I have broken down every paycheck." You've seen my Excel sheets. I have broken down every paycheck through the end of this year and put in every bill that I have. And then I have that, and then I also have like all the alerts on everything that alert me. And then I also have a virtual bill tracker on my phone. So nope, I don't have any trouble paying my bills. However, if she had like asked, it would have been like I probably have like I probably have a lot of, like, hospital bills and collections, like, just, like, random bills because they'll send them to me in the mail, and I will, like, put them on the fridge, and I know that this is an issue for me, so I will
Mhm.
put them on the fridge and be like, "I need to freaking pay this bill, I can't keep
Mhm.
slacking," and then I just don't, and
Yeah.
then I don't, and I'm just like, "Oh," like, the other day, I got a phone call because when I was pregnant, I think it was, like, October. I had maybe October, November. I had to take an ambulance, from one hospital to another hospital, and the ambulance bill, I don't remember how much it was, like, 50 bucks, and I got the bill, and I was like, "Ooh, I have to pay this." I never paid it. Never, and I know I never paid it because it sits in the back of my head. It sits there, but I'm just like, "Yeah, I gotta do that. Yeah, I gotta do that. Yeah." It never gets done. They called me, like, a couple weeks ago, and they were like, "Hey, you have this bill," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," she's like, "Stay on the phone and let me get my card so I can do this." And they're like, "Do you wanna pay the full amount?" And I wanted to be like, "Yeah, the amount wasn't the issue. I'm the issue."
So many times that can be the amount of time that you're spending not doing the thing is probably so much less than actually doing the thing, but our brain struggles with that. It seems to put in all of these barriers to doing whatever it is, kind of like doing the notes to cleaning the coffee table is, oh, well, if I do that, then I have to do this. I have to make the call. There's so many steps that it gets broken down into when just being able to do it would take less time, but our brain doesn't think of it that way.
It's so frustrating. I have a checkbook. Like, I can literally write the
Yeah.
check and pop it back in the mail. I don't know. And it's so frustrating because I'm like, what is wrong with me? It's like a mental block. So, in that instance, like, the answer would have been, yeah, I have trouble paying my bills, but
Mhm.
I overcompensate so much that it's like, no, nope, I'm good.
So, also being distracted during situations by external stimuli. So something that had shown up, we have a fish tank, and sometimes when the water gets too low, it makes a noise. And my husband said, he's like, I cannot hear anything you're saying because my brain is only focused on the fish tank. Nothing else. He's like, I want to pay attention to you, but my brain cannot focus on anything else. Where my brain will go on and don't get my attention almost to the point that like it's alarming that they're not getting my attention and they really should to that one single thing has completely taken his entire train of thought.
I used to think I had a hearing issue.
Really?
Yeah, because I thought there was something wrong with my hearing because if there's any, like, background, like, the TV is on, the radio is on, anything like that, I cannot comprehend what you're saying to me, and I've learned that it's not a hearing issue, it's a me issue. If I'm in the car with my husband or my son and they wanna talk to me, it's not simply like turning the radio down. Like, I have to pause I
Mhm.
cannot have it even a little bit because I don't know. It's like maybe it is an auditory processing thing, but I can't hear it. And sometimes I feel bad, like when I go to my grandpa's house and he has the TV on and I have to ask him, like, "Can you mute this? Because I can't," and he'll turn it down and I'm just like, "Can you mute it?"
Hmm,
Because I can't, like, process.
really?
Yeah.
And that makes sense with the concentration. It takes away the concentration, so you're not taking in that information. Hmm. Then often feeling forgetful of like daily activities. That's where I talked about that routine. It's not part of your daily routine, you're not gonna remember to do those activities. That's where many times people, especially adults with ADHD, have such a hard time starting on, like, new medications or starting on, like, workout routines or things like that because it just if it's not part of that daily routine that has been long lasting, it doesn't exist. But how do you make a daily routine? By practicing it every day. It's a really challenging cycle.
I have to put everything in my phone. Everything. Like, if I say, "Yeah, Justin, I'll call you after work." Right as I say it, I put it in my calendar. "Call Justin." Like, I have some weird stuff in my calendar because it's like, I don't even know some of the weird I have to put everything in there or else I really will forget it, and calling people back is a big one. But again, like, I've learned to compensate for it.
Yeah.
So, it's not an issue now because if I tell someone I'm gonna call them back, I put it in my calendar.
And leaning on sometimes those technology pieces can be so helpful, like utilizing that calendar, utilizing the notes or the reminders. Like that can take some of that stress that would consume your brain power. Because I mean, before that, if you didn't put it in your phone and you're like, oh my God, I have to make sure I call this person back, you might have thought about that the entire day.
Yeah.
And then when it comes time to actually do it, like you lose your train of thought, but you kind of skipped or was on autopilot the whole day because you were focused on doing it, and then we can still forget to do it. Yeah. Mm. Um, the other one, hyperactivity and impulsivity. I know we kind of covered that a little bit of like going from one task to another and it being that immediate piece. So often being fidgety or tapping hands, feet, just kind of like squirming.
Oh my god, as I'm sitting here, like, fidgeting with my hair.
A lot of times people will like talk about getting their nails done so they don't bite them. And that can be part of an anxiety piece or an anxiety symptom, but also
That
with
is
an
why I get
ADHD.
my nails done,
Is
'cause
it real?
because I not only I don't bite my nails since I had braces, but
Okay.
if I don't get them
Oh,
done,
pick
I'll
them.
pick them really bad. Sometimes I still do, but not as much as if I don't have them done.
Having issues like staying in your seat. in situations when you should be in your seat. So that's more common when, kind of talking with kids of like getting up, moving around, things like that. And that's where the ADHD diagnosis is really targeted towards kids. That's why it's so underdiagnosed in adults.
I
Uh,
fidget in my chair because I have like a
mm,
similarly sized chair in my office and I will fidget in my chair. Like you'll see me fidgeting during the episodes too, as I'll like switch my feet or I mean, I have like sat sideways before in my chair, like just but I do stay in my chair. So
right? But it takes a lot of effort. If you weren't consciously doing that, you'd probably be up and walking around.
yeah,
Runs about or climbs. Man, we're probably not climbing things.
I am not climbing things. No.
Unable to engage in leisure activities. So maybe it is kind of being hyper focused on the things that we have to do. So then you're not really enjoying the things.
Well, also, like, I think of every other week I go to the chiropractor and I have to lay there for like 10 minutes while he puts a TENS unit on my back. And it's very relaxing.
Mhm.
Allegedly. It's supposed to be very relaxing. But for those 10 minutes, like, I don't have my phone. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, what if my phone rings? What if somebody texts me? Like, I feel very, like, like I can't relax.
We kind of talked
It's,
about that in the episode of like always being connected in that sense. Like it's
yeah.
hard to focus our attention and then it can very easily kind of lean on those what ifs.
Mhm.
Often on the go, just having a hard time kind of slowing down, and then you just kind of crash. And that might look different as an adult if it's more mentally always on the go,
Mhm.
rather than as a kid being up and moving. Like you had said, well, it makes sense that they're going to be exhausted because they've been up running around the whole day. Nobody sees what's going on in your head, that the smoke doesn't actually come out.
It's getting close though.
Often blurts out answers before the question is completed, or completing people's
Oh, I was
sentences.
just gonna say that
Yeah.
that is something I have to work so hard at because as a therapist, you do not finish their sentence. You don't do it. You do not, even if you know for sure what they're trying to say, you don't do it. It is so much harder to do that when you have ADHD and you just have to sit there and you're like, not really. I don't actually do that. But internally, I am
Yeah.
like, yeah, yep.
I didn't think about that in the work context. I was thinking like in personal life, like it can be annoying, but
I finish my husband's sentence. He don't know what he's saying. I know what he's saying. He doesn't know. I got him. He's so lucky to have me to finish his sentences. But yeah, at work, it's really hard.
difficulty waiting your turn. So like could be while waiting in line, waiting to speak. Like those can be really challenging.
I never have any issues with waiting in line.
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
But I also feel like when am I waiting in line? Usually something with Richard. Like usually we're in line at like I don't know, like I think of Disney, like
Hmm.
waiting in line or waiting in line for I don't know, the drive-through for his McDonald's. And I'm so focused on teaching him patience that it helps me too.
Practicing it,
Yeah, so that
modeling that behavior.
yes. So the waiting in line, waiting your turn, uh luckily does not manifest for me.
Overall, how can it make it just challenging as an adult experiencing and living with ADHD?
It makes such simple things so overwhelming, and it's so frustrating because as an adult, you're faced with a lot of overwhelming things, and it just feels like double. Like, I don't know how to explain it, like
Like the simple tasks that could be done seem like they're made into bigger things in our brain. And then the things that are actually overwhelming and have the right to be overwhelming, that probably even grows in itself.
yeah, so it's just so exhausting and overwhelming and invisible that it's just so hard.
You don't wear it like a cast.
Mhm.
If you break a bone or something along those lines, you wear a cast. It's physical. People can see it. You don't have a tattoo of ADHD on your forehead. So,
Don't
that.
tempt me, I mean, I'm due for a next
Any other ways that you think it shows up? And I know this is not a completely exhausted list.
just, there's ways to manage it and it
Mhm.
can be really overwhelming and having that support is really important. Like I always say this, but like I'm so happy my husband is so supportive. Like he doesn't get it, but he supports me anyways. Like he does not understand but it doesn't matter. He supports me anyways.
And it's funny because I think on the opposite side, like my husband has talked about experiencing ADHD symptoms and is like working on going through the diagnostic process of that. And I did not understand it because it is not how my brain worked. And so I would get frustrated. I'm like, why are you interrupting? Or why are you sitting here doing this? And then you're asking me a question of what happened to the TV show until I started rephrasing that question of like, hey, what's going on? Can you let me in on what you're thinking? Then I found out it was the fish tank that was consuming all of his attention. And he wanted to sit there and listen to what we were talking about. And then he then shared even the next piece of it, like, he's like, then I'm so frustrated that I'm not paying attention to what you were talking about, that's consuming me too.
It's like constant spirals. It
Yeah.
really is. So it's really important to have support.
And letting people in on it because I had no clue.
I've
I
gotten a lot more comfortable very recently. So when I do telehealth sessions, that is my like Achilles heel when it comes to
Ooh.
my ADHD because they're not right in front of me. So like, I can, look at my phone or I can like, you know what I mean? So that is why I started crocheting. And I have recently felt very comfortable letting my virtual clients know, like, I am really working on my focus and, my ADHD sometimes hinders me from that. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to crochet while you're talking. So if you see me like looking down, I'm not looking at my phone, I'm not doing anything, and I will show them whatever I'm working on. And I will say, like, this is what I have found that makes it so I can like really focus on what you're saying. So just kind of doing little things like that, but being comfortable talking about it
Yeah.
because it is kind of like, I don't know, it's like you don't want to talk about it sometimes, but yeah. So I've crocheted a lot of blankets. And a lot I make everybody hats. I've made 2 blankets. I made a scarf. I'm making a headband. Like I just yeah, I owe you a blanket soon. I gotta make some Christmas stockings. Like, but it's just so because it's just so repetitive.
It's something to do though. It's something to be a low level stimulation.
Yes. So if any of my clients see me crocheting while I'm doing virtual sessions, just know I am listening to you so much better now. Like I listened well before, but like I have noticed I am like focused. So it is awesome.
What a cool little trick.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Cool. All right. Thank you guys for joining this week.
Yay. See you guys next week.